everyone, my name is Alicia and welcome to my little breakdown of SSDs and why I think they're worth the investment when you're looking at building your new PC. Now when it comes to storage, I think it's something that all of us kind of know. SSD equals good, but why is an SSD worth paying that little bit extra for and getting over a hard drive? So for my most recent PC build, I was fortunate enough to be sent not just one, but two different SSDs from Samsung. So we're currently running in my build the 970 Evo Plus, and we're also running alongside it the 870 Kuvo. Now I was thrilled to have these sent to me because I was already running an Evo on my previous build and I was already looking at Samsung SSDs to be putting in this current one. The difference between these two, so the 970 Evo Plus is an M.2 connection type and the 870 Kuvo is a SATA 2.5 connection. And we'll go into the differences between those two and what it means for your build when you're looking at building your new PC. So I think the first thing I want to clear up is a misconception that a lot of people have with M.2 being the same as NVMe. Quite often, because we see them together in sentences on packaging, a lot of people can confuse them as being the same thing. However, M.2 is the connection type of your SSD onto your motherboard, and NVMe is the protocol that data is transferred. So essentially the way that your computer is communicating with your SSD. NVMe protocol uses PCI Express lanes to transfer data between your computer and the SSD, with the most recent generations PCIe 4.0 being able to transfer up to 8 gigabytes a second bandwidth. Very decent speeds, obviously. Something that you do need to keep in mind whenever you're getting the latest generation of anything, really, not just your SSD, is your compatibility between your other components. There'd be nothing more devastating than getting a shiny new component and it doesn't work with the rest of your PC build. SATA is an older protocol based for HDDs. It will have a slower transfer speed. You're looking at probably around your 600 megabytes a second bandwidth. However, in saying that, typically SATA connections are a more affordable form of SSD and they do have excellent compatibility. So depending on your situation, what your PC is needing to do, SATAs can be a great choice as an SSD. Your SSDs come in their different form factors. So you have your SATA connections like my 870 Kuvo. You also have an M.2 SATA connection, which would be like the 860 Evo. And you also have the M.2 NVMe, which is like my 970 Evo Plus. Now we've talked the logistics, we've talked the numbers on paper, what it looks like with some of our different SSDs. But how does that actually affect our gameplay or what we're doing on the computer? SSDs communicating efficiently with the rest of your computer will mean that you'll have a much shorter loading time between scenes. I know myself, I play a lot of RPGs, for example. Skyrim I'm currently playing on stream, and having an SSD is meaning that I'm getting minimized loading times between I'm in a city, I'm going in and out of buildings constantly, I'm fast traveling, whatever I'm doing, it means that I am shortening those loading times, which means I have more time to be playing the game. That's just a photo. There was a really interesting independent study done by D1 DLC where they fast traveled in The Witcher and had a side-by-side comparison of The Witcher running off an HDD and The Witcher running off an SSD. And the SSD, there is a significantly shorter load time, and that then, as you apply it over that 2-hour gaming session, means that you're going to be able to fit a lot more gameplay in rather than sitting there and waiting for a scene to load. Now we did touch on briefly that between the different models of SSD, that will mean a different price point for different SSDs. One of the great things is they do work perfectly well in tandem. So it's something that I would recommend doing, and it's what I have in my build. My M.2 NVMe SSD, I have my most critical software on, such as my operating system, streaming software, editing software, things that I want the maximum speeds that I can get out of them. And then I have on the 870 Kuvo my whole gaming library. Now, the Kuvo that I'm running has 2 terabytes of storage, so we have a lot of room for games. And then you can always look at upgrading as well down the track. Now, one thing I will mention that you should look into before purchasing your SSD is how many of the connection ports you have on your motherboard. So with a SATA connection, typically a lot of motherboards will have plenty of connection points. You're looking at 4 to 6, sometimes more. However, with M.2, sometimes you are limited in how many SSDs you can connect into the motherboard. I have a slightly more high-end one, and I have 2 connection points that I can put M.2s into, but make sure you do clarify that before buying your SSDs. Well, if you have gotten to the end of this video, thank you so much for hanging around. I hope you have found it at least somewhat informative. Thank you once again to Samsung for sending me these 2 SSDs. They have been performing spectacularly for me, and I hope that this has given you some insight into when you are looking at your new PC build or looking at upgrading your storage, consider getting an SSD over a HDD. It is really worth the investment of the little bit extra for them, in my opinion, and we're going to be cutting down on some loading times on my streams, that's for sure.